Hello and welcome back to this video where we're now actually going to start to create the actual asset. Now where we're going to start, and that is going to be at the actual handle here, and we're going to break this down into 3 different sections. Okay, so in this first video we're just going to build this overall shape, and then as we move forward we'll then create this orange section, and then this black section, and then this orange section again. So without going on too long, let's begin. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a box, and we want this box to roughly represent the overall shape here. So now if we go to the perspective view, and I'm just going to arc rotate here, and what I'm looking at here is just looking at the sort of general width of what it is we're looking for. Now this will most likely change, so don't get too hung up on the actual width so far. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to hierarchy, and then I'm going to choose this option that says effects pivot only. And before I do that, I'm going to explain what this does. As you can see here, when we create this box, this pivot is set to this sort of outer edge here. So if we click effects pivot only and then choose center, what that means, it's going to center that pivot point. So whenever we are editing our asset here, it's just going to make it much easier. And especially when we're going to do things like that, as you see, I just centered the box to 0, 0, 0. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to edit the actual shape here. Now we want to be able to see this image behind it. So with the box selected, we're going to press the Alt and X key. And what we're also going to do is going to go up here where it says realistic, and we want to change this to shaded. And this is just going to make it much easier when we are editing the actual geometry here. So with the geometry selected again, we want to right click, choose convert to, and we're going to choose Editable Poly. Once we've done that, go to vertex, and then all we want to do is just move these vertexes into a sort of approximate location here. So there's nothing too much in terms of modeling just yet. We just want to build the basic shape and sort of get the right sort of flow here. So what I'm going to do here is I made a marquee selection around all these edges. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to choose connect, and then instead of actually clicking connect itself, I want to click the little box next to it, which is going to bring up the options to allow us to determine how many connects we want. So I'm going to choose 4, and this is going to allow us to then go back to vertex mode and then just manipulate these vertexes to roughly represent the overall shape of this knife handle. So I'm just going to move these around until I get something that I am fairly satisfied with. So this bottom one here, I'm just going to leave this as it is for now. We're not going to move that too much. And what I also want to do is I want to add 2 more connects. I want to add one here. So I'm going to choose connect, and I'm going to right click where it says 4. So it goes back down to its default value, which is 1. And move this up. And I want to do the same over here. I choose connect, and I'm just going to move this along and then reposition those vertexes. Okay, so we have a great outline here. What we want to do now is I'm going to select the polygons here on the front. So let me select these front polygons, and we're going to press the delete key. And what I also want to do is I want to delete these polygons on the back here. So I'm just going to turn off X-ray mode or see-through mode, and I'm just going to select these back-faced polygons here. These are the ones we don't want. So we're going to press delete. So now we're going to use a modifier called Symmetry. So we're going to go to modify the drop down, and we're going to press the S key up until we see Symmetry, and we want to change this to Z. And what we want to do is we want to click the drop down, and we want to choose a mirror, and we want to move this to let's see, I want to move this out just so it touches just like this. And actually what we can do is we can set this to 0. And we can select, make sure we have the marquee selection. We can select this, right click here, we choose this to 0. And what this gives us is everything perfectly aligned. Okay, so this is looking great so far. There's one last thing we want to do before we move on here. So I now want to go down to the edge mode and I want to double click, and this will allow me to select everything within on a sort of line here. So once we have done that, I'm going to go back down to the X-ray mode, and I want to use a modifier called chamfer. And what I'm looking to do here is just bring this chamfer edge just around where that light hits on the background here. So once we have that in place, we want to then go back into perspective and make sure that everything looks fine, which it does. And in actual fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that. I'm going to choose chamfer again, and I'm just going to push this a little bit further, maybe around 20. Press OK, turn this off, and then go back to symmetry. Okay, cool. So the last thing we want to do before we wrap up this video and move on is we want to select this, and we want to add something called a Turbosmooth. So we'll bring up the modifier list, press the T key up until we find Turbosmooth, add this on, and I'm going to choose iterations of around 2. Okay, and you can see there's just a slight modification we need to make here. We need to bring these out. So here's what I did here. So I click this button that says show end results. Okay, and this will turbo smooth it and apply all the modifiers above it. However, it will allow us to modify the object on its base level. So once we have this approximately shape, we can now turn off this show end result and drop back down here. Okay, so that has been successful. All I'm going to do now is bring up the materials editor by pressing the M key, and I'm going to drag on a new standard material here, and I'm going to double click on where it says material 26, and I'm just going to drop this color just a little bit, and I'm going to select and assign this just like how we did with the image references here. However, we're not going to increase or decrease any of the self-illumination, and I'm also going to change this color here to black, and this is just a personal preference, but it just makes things much easier when it comes to modeling. Now, with that said, we have got the very basics of this handle. In the next video, we are going to break this down even further and continue to build upon what we have here. So until then, I'll see you in the next video.